I really think we need like a theme song or something, like something that's kind of key us in. I'm gonna try to see if I can find something. You know, maybe I can maybe I can talk to my boy Posty and see if he can come up with something.
Post.
That'd be so cool. How cool would that be? Like we had like some original like music from Post Malone to like bring us in. You know, that would
Yeah, I
be
mean, if you have
so.
that contact in your phone,
I do. You know, I've never called or used that number because I don't even think it's his real phone number. I think it's like his road manager or something like that. But
or he has a new one every week or something.
yeah, probably. Well, I've heard he fired his last one. I
I
don't know.
mean,
Maybe.
phone number.
Yeah, exactly. But
Dude,
yeah. So
there's so many variables when you're that famous that I can't even like contemplate.
yeah, you know, yeah. And the thing is, we both seen it. He takes it so graciously. You know, that guy is all about the people. Hey, Melanie. Um, Yeah, so first thing, my apologies on yesterday. That was on me. I just, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it was not our intention to have a live show during or before the open. If anything, we would have did something after the open to try to take advantage of maybe that crowd or something like that. But even then, Seven was on, and that's kind of to kill Taylor or not kill Taylor, but Taylor doing the open type stuff. But so our bad on that. That's on me totally. So
Well, and I
uh,
mean, look, you and I have both had a kind of a crazy week, a lot of
yeah,
stuff going on, and we're, as pretty much always since we started doing these shows, just trying to find a time that we can both do from different parts of the world with different
yeah,
jobs and different locations, responsibilities. So, yeah,
yeah.
definitely not intentional yesterday, but we did want to have a show,
Yeah.
um, and we
Shout out
have
to T-Bird for reminding us that too. Shout out
definitely.
T-Bird. And I love her like her like yeah her like profile her pictures like winking like I
I
got
got
you.
you.
Yep. Exactly.
And if you guys saw the thumbnail, the focus of the show eventually today is going to be kind of previewing the WFP qualifiers that are starting next week. They have put out a ton of information this week that I think is helping athletes and fans understand a little bit more about the structure of their season. But there are two other things that we're going to do at the start of the show. First one is pretty somber. The second one is a little bit more fun. And actually, I think that for this first one, we're going to lean on a friend of ours, Rob Lawson, who really he's posted three posts here on his personal Instagram. He's also posted one on CrossFit Aberdeen. And if you are plugged in with CrossFit training, CrossFit methodology, competitive CrossFit scene, you've probably seen some of these posts going around. And if you're in North America, you may know who McCoy Turner is. If you're in Europe or Asia, you might have a better chance to have actually known him personally. Is this the one that I asked that we could read, Patrick?
Yeah. Do you? I'll let you go ahead and read it unless you want me to read it.
I'll read it, and
Um,
then I'll allow you to share some thoughts because you can certainly resonate with some of this on a personal level from sort of the military PTSD side, and then I'll fill in on it. But I thought Rob wrote something really beautiful here, so I'll read it, and then we'll get into it here. It's with the deepest regret and heartfelt sorrow that we must inform you all of the tragic passing of our dearest friend and drop-in coach McCoy Topsy Turner, who sadly chose to end his own life on Saturday, March 8th, 2025, after returning back to Bali following a long-term battle with complex PTSD. Our gym owners are two of Topsy's closest friends and have now flown to Bali to say their final goodbyes, attending his funeral and celebration, which is this Saturday, the 15th. A level 4 CrossFit seminar staff redshirt McCoy taught a staggering 256 level 1 and level 2 seminars globally across Europe and Asia. A flow master, a coaching mentor, he truly was a master of his craft. He was a beacon of light that filled every room he entered. He had an incredible warmth, kindness, and a cheeky smile that would instantly make you feel at ease. He has impacted the lives of so many people and will continue to inspire thousands with his legacy. A wonderful father, friend, mentor, and coach, he will be sorely missed. He believed in doing the right things for the right reasons for the right people. As his close friends, we believe it is our duty to step up and do the right thing, to provide some form of financial stability, easing a small burden for his two sons, Brody, 17 years old, Tommy, 13 years old, to provide a little assistance as they begin to navigate this extremely difficult chapter of their lives without their father. For those of you able to donate, please do so at the link in the bio. Comment and share this widely if you can. We hope our gym, the wider military community, and CrossFit affiliates globally will now come together to support this family of one of the very best men that graced us with his presence. Thank you all in advance, and remember, it's okay not to be okay, but please reach out. This video was taken just 5 days before his passing at our gym, completing open workout 25.1, and serves as a testament that not all illnesses are visible. Even those who on the surface have it all can be suffering inside. So please be kind, reach out to your friends and loved ones, and tell them that what they mean to you, as you never know how long you have left with them. From Paul and Carl. So Patrick, I'll just going to turn it over to you. I did see through some of the other stuff that he served in the Royal Navy, and he was just a guy that seemed to take everything that he did very seriously, very professionally, and to the highest level. They did mention there in the write-up about some of the PTSD that he was experiencing, which I know is something very personal to you, and so I did want to give you a chance to talk about that, as it clearly impacts you on multiple fronts.
Yeah, it's just, I never met McCoy, but I heard about him. I've heard about him. I feel like I'm pretty, because of my time as a judge. A lot of the judges, a lot of the senior judges, a lot of their seminar staff, and I've heard of him. And then, when I talked to, I got to know a lot of the Valley affiliates through Con and some of the other affiliate owners, and he lived in Valley, and they always talked very highly of him. And then I think a lot of people really got to know him through Taylor Self. For those who know Taylor, his goal, yeah, he was part of the CrossFit mentorship program. So the whole point of the mentorship programs to help L2s and L3s become better coaches. And this was a Taylor Self signed up for that mentorship program. And say what you want about Taylor, and I know we both have opinions of Taylor, but I think there's one thing we will not deny is how much he loves CrossFit and how much he loves and believes in the methodology and how it helps people. And Taylor sought him out and listened to him, and he wanted to be a better person. But one thing, with that being said, like, the methodology does help people out in so many ways. Um, and for me, when it comes to PTSD, it helps me out mentally. Um, and I'm sure that's one thing that helped McCoy out as well. I think eventually, whatever was haunting him, whatever he couldn't live, whatever he couldn't escape, it just overcame him, and he felt the need to take his life. I can definitely relate to that as someone who has tried and fought those demons, and luckily, I for better or worse, I failed at that aspect. Um, it's People make light sometimes of mental disorders, specifically PTSD sometimes, and they think it's like, it's a mental thing, but unless it happens to you, you really don't know, how it affects you on a daily. Um, you know, like, anytime I think about it, I think about all the bad days, because I have bad moments every day. There's moments I doubt myself, and doubt my ability to make it through a day. And it's because of the community. People like Brian, I met you because of this beautiful community. I've met great people that check up on me almost daily through the community, the love and beauty of CrossFit. And it really pains me, because this is a guy who really, he epitomizes everything that's great about CrossFit. He lived CrossFit, lived it. But again, you know he felt the need that it had to be something really, really hurting him for him to do that, leaving two teenage sons, a beautiful life, um, behind like that. And I can only sympathize and send my thoughts and prayers to, his family and his community. Um, it's a sad day. It really is. And you know, to hear another veteran, doesn't matter if he served in the UK. He served in Iraq, he served in Afghanistan. You know, he served in the same place that so many other people have. He earned my respect for that, and you know, I just hope he finds peace, or he's in peace now, and then I hope that, you know, wherever he's at, he's sending the strength back to his loved ones and helping them in this difficult time as well.
Thanks, Patrick, for talking about that. I know it's super personal and difficult topic for you to talk about sometimes. You know, it's uh it's different, but it's similar to you know, where we were sitting last August, where a global figure as part of this community, you know, left us earlier than anyone would have liked to see happen. And the day after Lazar passed in August, Patrick and I made a point of coming on and giving an opportunity to talk about some of our best memories with him and to celebrate his life. And from reading the write-ups of his closest friends, it sounds like that's what McCoy would have wanted as well, is to for his life to be celebrated. And you know, if you work at 250 plus seminars, in addition to all of the hours, endless hours put into the gym coaching people, you know, the list of people that will be impacted by this is massive. You know, so it's very similarly to it was with Lazar last summer. And just in the past week or so, as I've been thinking about this and letting it come kind of to more of the public light, I had known that I wanted to come on here and talk with Patrick about it, even though neither one of us had the privilege to meet him or work with him. And you know, just make anyone who wasn't aware of this situation aware of it. You know, for any number of reasons, and it could be the thing that we always talk about, that you always kind of hear here and there, but sometimes don't give the attention to, is to check in on your people. It could be of just like a reminder of the preciousness of life. It can be so many different things to different people, but um, you know, there was this. I think, you know, CrossFit mentions it here. Community feels very close when things like this occur, and that seemed to happen a lot in August following the games. But then, as we've gone on in the time since then, if you're plugged into what's happening in the CrossFit community, you see this divisiveness, this pulling apart, this sort of I don't. Sometimes it feels like hatred or animosity in these comment sections about rather trivial things in the perspective, you know, when put into perspective of something like this. And so I think, you know, as a greater community of people who are interested in sharing, I mean, James Sprague said it yesterday about how this methodology, this lifestyle has saved his family's life, his personally, his father's. And many of us can relate to that. And we have many different paths down which we can go to share that now, but all of them come back to the same thing, which is kind of what Greg all, you know, taught us is, um, you know, make some healthy lifestyle choices, get involved with the community, and you know, you don't, sometimes you don't even need to talk about it, you just live it and it spreads. And I just hope that maybe we can, in the process of celebrating a man who committed so much to that movement, that we can, you know, sometimes you need to be reminded of things many times, but we can maybe be more kind, be less hateful, be less quick to respond to things that seem super important that really aren't, and realize that everybody that we know that's doing this thing on a daily basis, whatever the words are that are associated with, are still interested in creating a more healthy, more fit, happy, productive, hardworking global community of people. So, uh, Patrick, I'm not sure if you have anything else you want to say, but you know, we
Yeah,
also just we did also just want to bring light to the fact that there is an opportunity to support his family, and the community obviously responded in a big way when Lazar passed. And if there's a chance for you to contribute something small financially, that's great. Otherwise, you know, lean into whatever your personal, spiritual, religious ideologies are when it comes to prayer or positive thoughts, etc. For those guys.
yeah, I'll put in the description during the show the where you can support his family financially, or even just send his your thoughts and prayers to him as well. One last thing is, like I said, is like, you know, mental illness, you know, suicide. side. Um, it typically happens to people that you wouldn't expect it. And but they usually give you signs. Um, if you know of anyone, or if you yourself at any time feel yourself thinking like this, you know, it's okay. You can call this number here in the U.S. 988, the Lifeline. You'll be able to talk to someone, no judgment. If anyone listening, please, if you feel a certain way, you feel like saying the world, please DM me, reach out to me. I will, I will more than happy and to talk to you and tell you that you deserve to be on this earth and you deserve to be living, because this is a guy who seemed to have it all, and you know, but sometimes that's why they're called internal demons. It's more of a battle keeping those demons hidden than most people than it is than you think it is. It's hard. It really is. And just don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, because when it's too late, it sucks. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Is just and then also echo Brian's sentiments. Like we're only given so much time on this world. Let's why not enjoy it, and we don't know what other people are going through, so try to be, we say that at the end of each show, be friendly, our friends. We mean that. We mean that. You know, I try to do something positive or say something positive to someone before I leave, whether or before I go to bed every night, because that might be the last thing they remember you for. And I much rather be remembered for saying something nice and being kind than something controversial. So, yeah. So
Not an easy thing to talk about, but we felt like it was important. So, forgive us for the emotions, trying to do our best. Um, and yeah, we're going to move on. I haven't talked about it at all really yet this year, but um, I have been doing the open workouts at the affiliate that I go to. Like almost every affiliate, they program them on Fridays, and I've been doing them in the classes. I had a unusual work day today, so I did it with a class that I never had taken before, like 2 hours ago. And Patrick was been begging me to tell him my score or time. And but I told him he would have to guess it live on air. Have you had time to think about it?
yeah, I've been thinking about it, especially after that picture you sent me after you finished the workout. You obviously, I should have brought it up, but I don't want to scare people. I don't want to scare away the viewers we have, the live audience. So, but it obviously looked like you sent it. And if you sent it, that meant you were trying really hard to beat the cap. So I'm guessing 1912.
I mean, look, the workout was designed to, end on the rower if you're going to finish under the cap. And I think for many people who don't beat the cap, they will also end on the rower,
Yeah.
which is, I think, I'm sure it's intentional and very painful. I did not beat the time cap today. I got caught. I got caught up on the just on my heart rate. I couldn't. It wasn't really muscular fatigue or anything like that. I know I felt good moving the barbell. I just couldn't get my heart rate down. Took 2 long breaks on the last 2 sets of wall walks. Again, it wasn't like I never was really risking failing one. Just breathing heavy. So I got to the rower with maybe a minute and 10 seconds left, and I managed to get 25 calories in. But all 3 weeks, I gave it everything I had, and that's what going to a CrossFit class in general is about. So, yep, there was that.
Yeah, the full send finish. And I think that was so cool. Like, like I said, either trying to go full send to finish under the cap on the rower. I like ending a workout on a rower. Obviously, you want to, I mean, it doesn't give it like the best, I guess, visual, like from a competition standpoint, unless you stand up and run across the finish line. Because here, what we have is, Dallin stopping, flexing, but then hitting the floor. More often than not, that's what most people do is end up rolling off the floor. You don't really get to see that adrenaline rush of crossing the finish line. But I think this particular work, these athletes and with most people, it's pretty exciting. And I can only imagine how it is going tonight on Friday Night Lights, where you will have like heats of people, and then that first heat or second heat, or that heat that's in front of you or behind you, they're going to gather around that rower and try to root people on, try to get every single count. because you're going to have more people not hit the cap at these affiliates than they are than you will in the that finished the workout like these guys did. So like Melanie, words I've never said, like and roar together. but but yeah, it was fun to watch. These guys obviously went full send. Dallin was impressive. I thought, I know Dave doesn't program these workouts for the athletes that are doing the open announcement, but you can ask for better athletes to do this workout than these three, because you're looking at some of the top times, if not the top time right now with Dallin Pepper.
Yeah, it's pretty rare that the live open announcement yields the best time in the world, but I think that Dallin's time is, if it doesn't end up being the best time, will be pretty close. I mean, he's amongst the most fit men on earth. It's also, ending on the machine, which is advantageous for him, barbell cycling, which is a strength of his. So I think that's going to be a pretty tough time to track down.
Yeah. And a change. I think we're doing, me and Kate, we're not going to be able to do our show on Tuesday. So I think our plan is we're probably going to do it Wednesday. So we'll let you know. But we thought about Monday, but it's just yeah, it's too hard. I would have to stay up late, and plus I can't do it Monday. I have Monday Night Raw in Brussels.
Oh, that's gonna be cool.
Yes, I'm so excited. I was messaging Seth today, and I'm like, dude, when you come into Brussels? And he's like, I'll be there, this weekend. And so I'm gonna try to get there early enough, meet up with Josie, hopefully meet up with Facundo, meet up with Seth before Monday Night Raw, and then for those who aren't watching WWE, we're on the road to WrestleMania right now, and it's getting intense. So intense. It's so crazy, and I'm glad that I get to watch it live here. It's very rare for them to hit Europe before WrestleMania, but that's how big a phenomenon that it's becoming. So, and then to have someone like Seth Rollins, who is a big advocate for CrossFit and functional fitness, to kind of be, I mean, this year again, he's going to be front and center. He's probably going to be the main event, one of the main events of the two nights. And I'm very lucky to have a relationship with him. And, and it's so funny. And that relationship is because of CrossFit. Nowhere in my wildest dreams would I think I would have a relationship with a person that wrestles professionally at WWE that has 9 million Instagram followers and is just the coolest dude ever. And it's just really cool. Hopefully, I would love to see him at some more CrossFit / maybe World Fitness Project events or something like that. I know Ivy Nile, who's also real good friends with Jeff Adler. She's now on the WWE roster. Will probably be wrestling on Monday as well. So it'll be exciting to see another former I think she's still CrossFit, so it's just really cool. But yeah, that's what we're doing. Well, I'm doing Monday. So our 25.3 show probably will have to be Wednesday. So just watch out for that. Yeah.
Well, that's nice. Wednesday also is going to start the competitive season for the World Fitness Project, which I think is been a bit of a mystery. And now as it's getting closer, we're starting to find out more and more about it. They released the first episode of a series that is called On the Pulse on Wednesday. It's an hour long. Lauren Smith and Tommy Marquez host the show. They have Will Morad on it. They have Saxon Panchik on it. And then they have Jeremy Austin, who they announced is going to be doing the play-by-play for the commentary team for them throughout the season this year, it seems like. Will speaks pretty well. He actually did that interview while he was in Copenhagen on a trip, like a whirlwind trip that he ended up getting pretty sick on, but he gave a ton of great information in there for competitors in the Challenger and Pro divisions, which is where we're going to kind of focus today. Saxon spoke a lot about the community divisions and some initiatives that they have there. It sounds like, although the early media that went out from World Fitness Project was centered around the signed athletes and the pro divisions, that there are some other initiatives that have been in the works for a while on the community sides of things, and the gym side of things, which is in the media right now. People are talking about it. I'm not too sure about that yet, but the point is that there seems to be many things that are going on with World Fitness Project. And I mean, CJ here had no idea about the WFP show. How do I miss all this stuff? There's just a lot going on. And, I have had a chance to talk to some of the guys with the WFP. I don't think that they were wanting to necessarily have some of the most meaningful information for competitions come out right in the midst of the open, but you got to do it sometime. There's a lot of stuff constantly going on in the competitive fitness space, and if you're going to start something new, sometimes you just have to kind of make the best of it. As far as the top athletes in the world go who didn't get invitations to be signed athletes this year, their first opportunity to earn a pro card for next year starts this upcoming Wednesday. And so they're having their little countdown on their Instagram channel here. And on that show, they did a preview of some of the athletes who are already signed up for that. There's been some additional athletes who've signed up for it since then. And I'm sure there will be, in fact, Patrick and I know that there will be other athletes whose names you guys know that will sign up before that competition ends. No workouts have been released for that. It's a 1 week competition online, which always comes with some question marks. Online competitions are difficult to administer and run. So I would expect that they'll have some information about it now. But yes, Jeremy Austin, they said was the play-by-play. Lauren Smith and Tommy Marquez were hosting that show. It's my understanding that Tommy will be doing the color commentary. Lauren will be in her normal role as a sideline reporter. And I have heard that there's some other people who will be involved with the talent side of things, but that will be for World Fitness Project to release on their own time schedule. So yeah, there's a lot going on. As far as B.Friendly Fitness goes, we talked about it last week. We are passionate about the community and of course the professional athletes, the top athletes in the world, and we like to celebrate their achievements wherever they choose to exhibit those. That's why we're doing some shows on this channel about the Open as well as about the WFP, and we will continue to follow both seasons throughout the year on B.Friendly Fitness. So Patrick, you watched On the Pulse. What jumped out most to you about that kind of introduction to the season that they opened up with Wednesday?
Well, going into the season, I mean, obviously you're a little bit more involved. You're involved with the World Fitness Project in certain capacities. I just was very unclear about what the season looked like. I know they're putting stuff out on their Instagram, but maybe not necessarily in a very in like segmented formats. And I wasn't sure if one went ahead of the other. But what I loved about On the Pulse is one, you had Lauren and Tommy, who are two very well spoken, well respected people in the space, and they put it in a way that you could understand it and decipher it, and it made I could understand it fully. They had Will on to kind of explain what the whole pro card was about.
Yeah.
And obviously this is something that Will and Jackson and the whole fitness project team has been working on, and he broke it down pretty nuts and bolts, like
There was something that he said. I think they actually clipped it. I think you showed the clip of Saxon. They put out 2
yeah.
teasers prior to this episode. And the
Mhm.
one that Will was on, he spoke about the fact that, hey, I'm going to look in the eyes of all the people in Indianapolis that get there and tell them, as soon as this first workout starts, no one cares how you got here. It's now whether you were signed or you qualified, everybody has to earn it.
Yeah.
And he, this is it. I mean, it'll be subtitles here for you guys if you're watching, can read along. But he basically said, signed athletes, we had to choose some. We had to get this thing going. If you wish it or think that you should have been a signed athlete, great. Use that as motivation. Use that as fuel, which is something that Patrick and I have said countless times when we put our rankings out. Like, whatever it takes to fire you up, because what he goes on to talk about after this, or at some point in this, is the perks of earning that pro card. They do explain the process for that throughout the season. And this was something that I learned that was kind of new, is that at that final event, the top 20 points earners are the ones that get the pro card for the next year. That was something I knew, but it's also based on the total points over the course of the season that the final payout distributions are done. So you could have a scenario where we'll just use names that we've been talking about, where Jeff Adler wins the final, but Dallin Pepper earns more points than him, and Dallin would be the tour champion and take the 75,000 prize purse, and Dallin, if he gets second in the points total, would take 50,000. So it's actually the total points that correlate with the final season payouts. And something else that Will said in here that I thought was interesting, because I mean, keep in mind, Will Morad qualified for the CrossFit Games for the first time in 2014 out of the Central East Regional, and he was still competing at the semifinal level last year. He got injured, had to withdraw, eventually won the Masters CrossFit Games. That he has had locker room conversations with men from Rich Froning's era, Matt Fraser's era, the up and coming era. And he said in there, this is something that we as athletes have been talking about for a long time, of creating a season or having a season where multiple stops throughout the year all culminate in an eventual champion, instead of having a season where you do something, you qualify, it resets to zero. You do something, you qualify or not, and it resets to zero. So it was interesting insight to hear him say that conversation has been existing amongst the athletes for what sounds like basically the better part of a decade.
TR says here, I'm still doubtful that this point system will work and will be received well. This sport is not like the others. I you know what, TR, if you would have asked me, or if you would have posted that like a week ago, I would have agreed with you. But now that I see it and I see the model off of it, I look at something like Formula One, golf, NASCAR, a lot of these sports where it's points based. Yes, there is the excitement of the competition, but that final competition, there's more on the line because of that point system. And what it's doing is making sure that these athletes bring it. You can't coast in these first two events, these qualifier events. You can't coast, because guess what? Someone's going to come and take your pro card. And we're gonna preview some of these athletes that have signed, and there's athletes there that will be. I mean, there's athletes signed that will not have a pro card next year, because you'll see the level of competition, and there's athletes in there. And I'm not going to lose or who's favorite. I'm just saying that it's the level of competition, and these athletes are going to bring it, especially with the chance of being, for once being considered a professional athlete, because like Will talks about in here, is like they get a salary, they get their travel taken care of, they get all this stuff. There's a lot of benefits to this. On top of that, all 40 of these signed athletes are guaranteed more money for a season than they've ever had before. Because
we can let's just say, worst case scenario, you finish last amongst the signed athletes in your division and don't get a pro card next year. At the end of the year, you've still spent very, very little money to compete, and you have a plus in your bank account relative to the money you spent anyway, based on the minimums. And we can contrast that, because you could finish, let's say, 26th overall in the season, and you could contrast that with the classic example that I use of Alexander Caron from a couple years ago, who invested $800 in qualifiers, plus who knows how much money on travel, hotels, food, etc. He's thousands and thousands of dollars in the red at the end of a season in which he placed 26th fittest man on earth. This comment, the problem is the potentially many competitors will not be at every event, and it will lead to confusion, just like the worldwide ranking. So I'm going to extrapolate on this to explain what he means a little bit. He means not all of the athletes have chosen to do the open, and therefore they won't all be at the games. Also, that there are some athletes who have declined the invite to the WFP and or will choose not to do the qualifiers, the challenger qualifiers, and try to earn their pro card. So in both cases, you will have that. This is what Patrick and I have been talking about for 6 months now, is that there's not, like, the CrossFit Games used to be the thing. And the cool thing about it was that when it was done, you knew that you were standing atop the podium, and that every other person who wanted to have the claim to fittest on earth gave it their best that year. Illness, injury, performance, judging things, everything else aside, You beat everybody. And this year, we're not going to have that. There are people that aren't going to be in the game season. They're already not in the game season. There are people that won't be in the WFP season. And so it will be difficult to say definitively, I am the best, the champion, the fittest, however you want to quantify that. So yeah, I could resonate with that thought, TR. The other thing that I think you were getting to with the point system is something that we talked about when we were previewing the signed athletes, and I was doing like the power rankings as a critical point of conversation is, again, this probably goes back to the sanctional time where we first started seeing high volume of opportunities for top athletes to compete. And we were asking questions like, how many competitions at this level can athletes realistically do in a year? And there are some athletes that are asking themselves that question and saying, I can't do 8, 9, 10 serious competitions in a year, and others that are going to try to take that on this season. And we'll see how that goes this year. And if there's any residual from this, okay, TR is clarifying something. I'm referring to the CrossFit Worldwide ranking in previous years. It made no sense to many because they didn't know why certain people were lower. Yes. So the CrossFit Worldwide ranking system, I'm not going to harp on it for too long, but that was never a good system. It was contrary to all the things that I had studied, practiced, trialed and errored, worked with guys like Tyler Watkins, Mike Halpin, Barkley Dale for years to figure out a way to actually quantify a worldwide ranking system. And currently, the best model for that, for sure, is on Apollo World Rankings or Apollo Performance Athletics at Barkley Dale's website. And assuming that he incorporates all the relevant competitions throughout the year, meaning World Fitness Project stops, CrossFit Games semifinals, relevant off-season competitions, then it will continue to be the best place to go and see as good of a representation of you can of all the competitive athletes from around the world. And kind of ranked in a rating system that he and I worked on for a couple of years to get to be as good as we can with the complicated nature of the sport. CJ, to be clear, the WFP signed athletes are contracted to compete at all 3 events. Yes, so they're contracted to compete there. I'm sure that there are clauses in there for injury or illness, and that they have ways to work around that if the case that they couldn't be there. But they are, I think, contractually obligated to be there. And additionally, they don't have to qualify for those events. That's where I think some of the maybe bitterness for people who feel like they should have got athletes who feel like they should have got the invite is because, well, now you're saying that to get my pro card next year, I have to do a qualifier, then a live event, qualifier, then a live event, and be amongst the top 10 points earners to get a final spot. I believe it's 10 in addition to the 20 at Copenhagen, and then finish top 20 on the season to earn the pro card. And WFP's response is basically yes, like that pro card is very, very valuable. And if you think you're good enough to get it, come and show us. And Will reiterates a couple times in this, he believes that the way that he's designed the season, that the best athletes will emerge from the qualifiers, the best athletes will make it to the finals, and the best athletes will ultimately earn a pro card for 2026. There's no guarantee because you were signed this year that you'll get it next year, but you are guaranteed a spot at all 3 events and expected to be there.
Yeah, we will see. Yeah, it's I'm excited for it. I mean, I think if you're very unclear about what the season looks like or what the WFP is, I highly suggest to watch In the Pulse because Will and Saxon, and Tommy and Lauren do a great job of explaining it. Even when they brought on,
Jeremy,
when they brought in Austin, even he had some questions, and they were kind of able to explain it to him. So if you're very confused or you don't know exactly how it's set up, I would watch that In the Pulse. It's very digestible, very good, great graphics. That kind of explains everything. And the way that's set up, it goes in order by explaining what the pros are, the elites, the challengers, the stages, and all of that. So I would really highly recommend that. It's a good watch.
Before we look at the challengers, Patrick, it also talks about the community divisions. And it's something that, again, I'm not expecting there to be a huge amount of information or people being aware of this, but you can currently sign up to compete in Indianapolis as what they call next gen duos. So teams of 2, male, male, or female, female. There's 2 different age categories, 3 years each. There's 2 masters duos categories, and there's 3 teams of 4 categories. All of those are open registration. There's no qualifier for that. You don't have to live in the same country, state, affiliate, anything. you can, of course, do it with your friends. And I know that the schedule for there is designed so that those athletes can compete in the in a different stage in the same venue, and then also watch the pros compete later in the day. So that was also mentioned and talked about. They brought in Saxon, who's the head of the community initiative for the WFP this year. And he talked about how excited he was to roll out some other stuff. He teased something called Project One, which is basically a community workout on site there for spectators. Tickets are available if you want to go to Indianapolis. And one thing that Will also talked about is bringing the best athletes in the world to communities who haven't had a chance to see them before. And obviously in North America, we have had the games here. We have had Rogue here, Wadapaloozas, but Arizona, Indiana, excuse me, not in those states. And then they're bringing the finals to Copenhagen in Denmark, which, I think there might have been actually a regional in Copenhagen in like 2011 or 12, maybe, but it's been a while since there's been a significant competition there. And I also have heard that they are seeking out new communities in different parts of the world, to go back to this question, like these athletes are contracted to be there. The league is flying them there. So I would not be surprised if we see a tour stop appear in Australia or South America in the year to come. So that's kind of the high level. And we'll use this to transition to the qualifiers, Patrick. To try for a pro card is really targeted to the elite. Yes, Will talks about this, that this qualifier, he kind of equated it to the Rogue qualifier in terms of the type of person who would benefit from signing up for it. And it kind of hinted at, I don't know if he said it explicitly, but it should be fairly obvious that this qualifier is intended to find athletes who can go to Indianapolis and actually give the signed athletes a run for their money, like make them feel some pressure. So I would be very surprised if the workouts don't eventually at some point get heavy, get long, get complex with the gymnastics in the qualifier, because he's got to have some kind of vetting process there to make sure that he's getting athletes of this status to Indianapolis to challenge for those pro cards.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you got up here? The men?
Yeah.
Oh boy. There's I think I would say, as expected, there's more males currently registered for the qualifier than females. But when you kind of pull out the names that we recognize, there's a pretty stout group already on both sides of the house. Starting at the top there, we'll just scroll through here. But Adam McAdams is a guy who's been having some success in North America the last couple of seasons. So I would say, he hasn't made it to the games, but he's going to have, he'll be an interesting guy to watch here. CrossFit Fort Vancouver obviously has a big storied history of team accolades and some good coaches around there. So he was kind of the first name that jumped out to me. We can just scroll down and I'll just kind of run through what I see. But in the Andrei Fedotov out of Russia, I think he's top 10 after first 2 weeks in the Open. He's like a little ninja. Be curious to see how he stacks up in this style of testing. Anil Akai is probably one of the favorites on the list so far. He's inside the top 20 of Apollo's worldwide rankings. So he is a guy who certainly could feel like he could have gotten that invite and has not. So he's still going to try to do that, which I love. Ant Haynes, Antoine Dumaine, names that we've seen in the mix before. The very bottom of the list, there's another guy from Hong Kong, I think, that's registered. So we got some Chinese representation, which is cool. Patrick and I talk about it sometimes, and it's one thing that you'll see as you scroll through this list on your own or with us, that there is a lot of international representation here from sort of all corners of the globe, including China, which has a big competition scene, but because of things that have nothing to do with fitness, it's very difficult for us to tap into at times. Brian Spin, I don't know if he qualifies as elite, but he's was one of the first people to sign up for it, and I love that, man. I mean, he is pretty fit, so I'm sure he can at least do some parts, or if not all of the workouts that they'll come out with. Bruno Marins out of that affiliate is
Brazil,
in UAE. Yeah. But Brazilian flag on the map, and there's a few guys from Brazil here. Carlos Labarte out of Mexico. Nice to see the Mexican participation. We're about to get to Colton Mertens, another guy who I think he's been kind of vocal about the fact that he feels like he could have gotten an invite to this. I don't know if he ranks high enough on either any of the ranking systems to get one, but he doesn't care. Like if he wants to do something, he's going to challenge to do it. I mean, if he does this qualifier, I would have a hard time imagining him not getting into the top 10, especially with what we've seen from him and the fitness that he has right now. So I'm hopeful that he does that. It's always exciting to have Colton in the field because he can win events. He can do world records. Hiller called him a god last week. The guy does do some crazy, crazy impressive stuff. So great to see him signed up. Let's see who else we got.
Dan Ty.
Yeah, Dan Ty out of the UK. He recently signed up. His girlfriend has been signed up for quite some time, but he put his name in the ring there. And yeah, Dan's a unique specimen as well. There's some stuff that he does really well. Dino Smajic there from Bosnia Herzegovina, good friend of Luka Jukic, who is, of course, one of the pro contenders. Enrico Zanoni below there, obviously a well-known guy out of Italy. I still think he's probably the fittest guy in Italy, although he hasn't made the games the last couple seasons. He's always a threat in Europe, and so he's going to throw his name in the ring. Hank Grenda, if you watch Fittest on the Coast, he had a couple good performances there. Henrique Moreira, another one of the guys out of Brazil. Jack Farlow. It seems like, Emma Lawson obviously has an invite. It seems like Jack is also pretty focused on this, and I would not be surprised if he takes one of those top 10 spots. Next week, once the full slate of these guys and girls is kind of known, I'll put some maybe some predictions out of who I think is most likely to get that. But of the guys we've seen so far, we may have seen the top 3 guys in Annual, Colton, and Jack Farley. Those guys are obviously incredible. Going through the Jays here. See what else jumps out at us. Caden Hogan. Yeah, young guy, training think tank guy. Fittest Managers works with him. He's got a ton of potential, super strong for his age. He's been doing pretty well through the Open so far. Right below him, Kaique Cerveni out of Brazil. Probably leads the list in terms of Instagram followers. Definitely also up there when it comes to fitness. Luke de Jong, a guy that I've been telling you about since 2021. If you've been paying attention, he's seems like he's finally solved some of his health problems. Man, I've had some crazy conversations with Luke over the years. For a young guy with an incredible amount of potential, he's had some big time setbacks. Like I think about the series the Buttery Bros are doing with WFP called Unbreakable. And, just like he seems to have that kind of mindset. Like he could have given up many, many times at a young age with back problems and other things in his life. And he keeps fighting, and he's looking pretty good right now. He's a bigger dude. So, I would say to only have 10 spots, like he could take one of those 10 spots with the right slate of programming, but also a different slate of programming similar to the first 2 Open workouts might make it difficult for him. Marcus Moreira.
I do know this like, if you look over to the right, look at all these like flags. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. And we're going to get into somewhere in here some guys from at least 3 different countries so far in Africa, or 4 countries from Africa as well, which is pretty cool, especially considering that a lot of the Arab community is not participating in the CrossFit Games season the last 2 years for political statements that CrossFit has made. Max Krieg was a recent guy who has signed up, and yeah, this guy is legit. Is he doing the Open this year? I don't know, but
yes, he's doing the Open.
Okay, yeah, because he looked great in Wadapalooza. We've been like putting a pin by his name for 2 or 3 seasons now, and he seems like he's kind of finally made that next little jump that you need to make to get on the big stages. So we'll see about that. Max Lees is a young guy out of Australia that Jeremy Austin spoke a lot about on the show. I think he has a lot of similar skill sets to Luke de Jong. Yeah. Wollongong is becoming a bit of a hub for I wonder why. In Australia. It's definitely not the weather.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys there from Libya. Well, the formal name is Libyan Arab Jamahiriya. Apologies if I did not say that correct, but this was cool. I saw them both pop up on the leaderboard a couple of days ago. I have, in all the years that I've been doing this, no exposure to CrossFit in Libya. So to see these two guys on the list was pretty cool. Obviously, I have no idea how they're going to do, but love to see them throwing their names in the ring. You got Nick Matthew in here, another former games athlete who certainly stands a great chance to qualify. Not far below him, Nikita Yundov. He's from Belarus. I think he's still in the U.S. though right now. Probably over in Invictus area.
Yeah, Santa Monica.
Yeah, super talented, super fit. Was on one of the underdogs teams at some point.
Last year he was
super nice guy.
He was on a team that made it to the games last year. Him and Roth, and
they got the backfill, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Radoslav Ivanov out of Bulgaria. I believe he was the second fittest guy in Bulgaria last year. I was checking him out a little bit. And even though he may not be as recognizable as some of these guys, it's cool that some of the best from different countries are taking a stab at this. Robert Yates out of the Southeast in the U.S. If you follow B.Friendly Fitness live streams, you've seen him compete a couple times on teams and as individual in some of those South Carolina, North Carolina competitions. Romain Felanu. Oh, Roderick Lopez. Can't skip over him. Similar to Spin, throwing his name in the mix. The guy actually is pretty fit. He's like,
he is.
He's pretty damn good.
He's got a good engine on him.
Yeah, good engine on him. Pretty sure he can snatch 225, strict seated ring muscle ups. Like he's got the skills, the strength, the engine. It's honestly impressive.
And here's someone that is a regular and probably in the chat still.
Yeah, Romain Felanu, Ryan Jevning were some of the earlier guys to sign up. Ryan's been a friend for years. He was one of the early guys that helped. Nico Bedon, who we've seen make a splash in the Open, will be signing up for Athletics. Great to see you, brother. Ryan and I met through Sevon actually many years ago, and still keep in touch every once in a while. So excited to see his name out there. Great picture, yeah. Couple guys from the UK. We saw Dion Christopher earlier, Sam Proctor, Sam Whitworth. I've seen a couple of these guys on the road at some competitions. They're kind of cutting their teeth and getting some competition experience here as well.
Sebastian D.
Oh, this is one that I actually, I don't know. That's a great last name, I guess. This one, I didn't see this guy down in the T's PC until just now. He was not here when I looked like 30 minutes ago, and it's Tommaso Pieri. Pieri, 2 years ago, Fall Series Throwdown looked incredible, and I was like, oh, this guy's going to make the games. He did not have a great game season. We haven't seen too much of him since then. I believe he's still working with Andre Houdet, but he's got some potential, man. I'll be interested to see how he does. That's cool that he's in the mix. Guy who has been. That's a great question. I would love George to do it. I've mentioned it to him, but ultimately, I'm not trying to put pressure on these guys. There's a lot of opportunity this year. Everyone's got to make decisions that fit with their life.
I think George, him when we last spoke to him, it's like part of why he kind of burnt out was like it was just too much. And I think he's really comfortable right now. He has a good system. I think right now maybe just fill out the game season. I mean, he's doing really good in the game season. Maybe fill that out. I think the game season, believe it or not, is probably more. It allows him to do what he wants to do. He has a full-time job. He enjoys his gardening. He enjoys his gym and his community. I think right now, I would love to see him in this field. But if I was advising, I'd probably just tell him like, hey, pick one. Just worry about this, especially coming back after a long layoff. Just kind of just build that up.
Yeah, I think it's important to say like, not everyone, almost nobody should be doing everything. Like pick a couple things, target those things, prepare for them, do them really well. If he goes to Mayhem or qualifies through the online affiliate and gets back to the games and has a good run there, and that's all he does this year, that's a great year for him in context of how he talked about getting back in the competition when we had him on the show.
Yeah.
Tristan Harrison, nice showing out in the West Coast last year. I'm curious to see if he can kind of back that up with some more impressive performances this year. And then a lot of the guys towards the bottom of the list I don't know too well. I did ask Austin. Zane Hatfield is not his brother. Austin Hatfield does have 3 older brothers. None of them are named Zane, so I don't know who that guy is, but he's on the list. He's been there for a while. North Carolina, West Coast. It could have been.
Yeah,
And then there's the guy from China, the last guy, Zhipeng Kao. He was actually fittest guy in China last year. He signed up maybe 10 days ago. So who knows how he's going to stack up? But again, we have a great international field on the men's side.
I do like the name of his gym, Attitude.
And I think this is also true, Clyde, that we were mentioning. We've heard of some that are going to be doing this, and it's pretty typical as well for that. Like there are some athletes who will sign up last minute.
Yeah, they'll do the qualifiers, see how they stack up, or how they feel about the qualifier.
You know what? There's also, Patrick and I were talking, there's some athletes with some serious name recognition that are like flirting with the 1% cut line on the open. And depending on how that looks Tuesday, Wednesday, they may have to make a decision that they weren't planning to make and try this if they're not going to advance in the next part of the season.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we did talk about that. So, challenger female. Yeah, this will be fun.
Go to the women's side. We've had some powerful names on here from the start. Some also new signups. Amanda Fisher recently put her name in the ring. Ali Zerker right above her, Colton's wife. Andrea Solberg, I think, signed up today. Excuse me.
She's the one. I mean, I will say you're going to start seeing a lot of the Norwegian athletes probably putting their names in there. I told you, me and Brian, we kind of know this about the whole Krieger athletics. Like, if there are any athletes built for multiple competitions in a season or doing a bunch of competitions, it's Krieger athletes. We see it consistently. Krieger athletes are always doing a lot of competitions. So seeing Andrea on there, and plus Andrea, she's making a run at it this year in terms of trying to, she made the games in 2020, which were the COVID games, but she feels like she's fit enough now, and she was in that contention last year. She just ran into the ring muscle ups and a couple other movements, but I think she's shored up a lot of those weaknesses over the offseason. I think she's one, we talked about on the men's side. I think on the women's side, we're going to see a lot of these athletes taking pro cards from that first list of signees. And Andrea Solberg is definitely one of those athletes I foresee maybe taking one of those pro cards.
There's a T-Bird asked a question here. Do you think people should at least do the qualifier in case something happens with their game season? I guarantee you this is a conversation that athletes and coaches have been having and are continuing to have. I would call it hedging your bets. Let's see if it were me and I wasn't sure, I'd say okay, well, at least by next Wednesday, we'll know what the workouts are. And Will has already teased that there could be 3 and possibly 4 workouts. You can do 3 or 4 workouts in a week, even if you don't sign up for it until the day it's announced or whatever. These athletes are doing tons of workouts in a week. So I think that there will certainly be some athletes hedging their bets in that regard, especially because it's so interesting. Like, I haven't decided if I think it's harder or easier to make the games this year than other seasons. There's less spots, but there's also some big names missing. So, and there's a lot of opportunities to go and kind of claim a spot. Plus, there's an online qualifier, which makes it maybe a little bit more realistic for some athletes than would have to do it in person, like an Andrea Solberg. The other thing that I wanted to highlight here, I just made me think about it when you were talking there, is because of that cumulative point structure, by the end of the year, you're going to have athletes who have had 6 scoring events in Indianapolis, 6 scoring events in Mesa, and 9 scoring events is what they talked about in Copenhagen. So that's and those events do count double points wise in Copenhagen. But either way, that means that to be the tour champion, you're going to have had to do 21 different workouts, for lack of a better word. The most amount we've ever seen in a games. Again, every games of competition starts with 0. You get reset after the semifinal stage is 15. So this should be the most comprehensive test in terms of the number of opportunities athletes like Andrea Solberg would have to score points. And if across all 21 of those scoring opportunities, a really critical weakness like a ring muscle up shows up one time, even if it counts as double points, she has 19 other opportunities to earn points, as opposed to a semifinal with 6 or 7 scoring opportunities where one landmine hurts dramatically. Think back to Sam Briggs in 2013, Katrin David's daughter, same thing, and countless other athletes that we've seen who've hit one stumble in a semifinal and the whole season falls apart. By the time that final hits, I really do believe, the more I think about it, that what Will said is true. And of the athletes that participate, I feel confident that the fittest person will be the tour champion of the WFP this year.
Hmm, that's pretty cool. Let me mark that down.
Um, have you
Um,
heard if Jamie Simmons will sign up? Would love to see her compete. Haven't heard much about what she's doing. Yeah, her and Elliot are, they definitely do their own thing. She had an incredible, successful winter over in the UAE through Dubai, Storm Games, Crucible, hundreds plus $1,000. And we had said that she was one of the athletes who could have, felt like she deserved a pro card invite. She probably doesn't need to do it, but she's certainly fit enough to do it. I'm always excited to see Jamie in the field, so I will be hoping that she signs up, but I don't really know. Fuliano is one that she kind of said that she was sick of online qualifiers and she didn't want to do any competitions that had online qualifiers this year. I believe she's going to do
she's doing both of them, I think.
Wadland and French Throwdown, and French Throwdown is the same weekend as the first tour stop for the WFP. So Elisa Fuliano is another athlete who, based on rankings and performance, could have felt like she deserved one of these invited spots. She didn't get one, and it does not look like she will be pursuing the pro card this year. Astrid Tind, great question. After a great showing on both the individual and team side at Wadapalooza, I'm not sure. I did talk with her teammates, Victor over there, Victor Munter, following Wadapalooza, and asked something similarly. And he said that they weren't even sure. They've done team together so many years. The Butcher's Lab is well known for their team performance. They've rarely had individuals come out of there, but she has shown some capacity in that regard. I mean, she is 5'11". It's pretty tall for a woman, but obviously she was impressive. So TBD. But the finals in Copenhagen, like that would be pretty cool if she ended up making it all the way there and competed at home. Keep scrolling through.
Yeah. There was something I was going to say. Forget it. Yeah. So Andrea Solberg. Here's another one that I think, she's looked impressive, obviously in the Open. She always looks impressive when it comes to online qualifiers. She always has that one trip up or something unfortunate happen when it comes to live competitions or when submitting scores. But I don't know. I feel really good about Annika. I'm sure I've said that like 2 years, 2 years in a row. But Annika's another one of those athletes.
Yeah, still super young, tons of experience already for her age. And
Mhm.
similarly to Andrea, if she gets into all of these fields, yes, she's going to have a couple bad events, but she's also going to have a heck of a lot of good events. So
Mhm.
I think that if Annika, wants to, she is a contender for the pro card next year as well. There's only one person with the name B signed up for this from Bulgaria, Belabeva, and right below her is a woman that I will never forget to mention again if she shows up on these, because otherwise Pool Boy is going to be knocking on
Boy. Yeah.
my pool house door. Caitlin Bernardin, good showing last year, decent showing at Wadapalooza as well. She's in the mix. Again, I don't know if there'll be an online qualifier workout that suits her, but like outdoor running events, she's pretty much incredible. Caroline Ferreira, who is at CrossFit Mayhem right now, I think living with Guy Mayeros and her boyfriend Tato Tour. So she's been signed up for a while. Caroline Prevost, I would say, super strong candidate to take one of the 10 spots to Indianapolis at the very least. Dana Paran below that also has had some success through online qualifiers, making it to some semifinals, Dubai fields, etc. Ooh, another one that just signed up recently, Elisa Schauer. She's from Omnia. She's been on their games team in the past that has placed top 10 at the games. I did not see her on there until today. So as Clydesdale speculated, and we've been talking about, there's going to be some more names added to this list. But damn, it's already exciting. Emily DeRoy,
Games champion in
obviously
the
out of
field.
Australia. Yeah, games champion in the team division, made it as an individual the year before. Gemma Hauk, another one out of Australia, just did a High Rocks. We saw her in Dubai. She's an up-and-comer down there. Grace Lochner, young girl in the U.S. PC's been talking about her potential for I don't know how long now.
Yeah.
So continuing to develop and improve. Jasmine Van Arnheim out of Belgium, one of their best athletes. Jen Muir right below her. I would say Jen is amongst the favorites of the athletes signed up right now to punch for one of those top 10 spots. Pretty well-rounded athlete. I would actually love to see her make it to Indianapolis. I don't feel like I've gotten to see her at the level of competition that I want to yet. And I think she could fit in there. So we'll see if she makes it through the qualifier, but it's great that she's signed up. Jess Green out of Australia, Jesse Smith from the United States. Ryan, we'll get to that. I'll get to that question. Actually, let's pop it up right here. What level of fitness do you guys think will qualify as a challenger? With only 30 spots, I could see a majority of top 20 semi-athletes making it. Yeah, it's really this is gonna unfold over the next 5 days when we see how many more names of that caliber throw their name in the ring. I think that top 10 is like you're gonna get basically. And maybe they haven't made the games before, but they're athletes that if you drop them into a games field, that they wouldn't look out of place for most of the stuff that's happening there. Maybe for a couple, specialty style events or whatever. But I think you're going to see some pretty fit guys make that top 10. 11 through 30 that earned their way to the challenger division. And the distinction between the challenger division and the pro division in Indianapolis is that there's no money available for those challengers, whereas all 30 pros get paid out at least $1,500 at those tour stop events. But the thing that's the same is that the points in the challenger division, so like if you get last place in the pros, it's 270 points. If you get first place as a challenger, it's 250 points. Those points count the same towards eventually becoming a pro next year. So there is a scenario, I don't know how likely it is, where you could make it as a challenger to Indy, win it, take 250 points, make it as a pro to Mesa, do well enough there to have a points total that gets you into the final, do well enough there that you could ultimately earn a pro card next year. So the very top couple places of that challenger division in Indianapolis could potentially be people who are still in the mix eventually for a pro card. Yeah, so great question. TBD. Let's see what happens over the next couple of days. Where were we? Oh, Ioana Skindaj, one of two women from Albania who's on this list. I've only seen her compete at the Foster's Throwdown the last 2 years. She's one of these athletes that she has super high highs, super low lows. Thrusters, burpees, get out of the way. Ring muscle ups, it's going to be the end of the competition for her, basically. It's that extreme from having top performances to bottom performances. We go down into the Ks. We got Katharina Isele out of Germany. She was at the semifinal last year.
Shout out to my homie here, Katie Chrisman out of Crafts, Nashville. She's been on the semifinals, I think, on teams last year. She was on the team out at Syndicate Crown. So nice seeing her throw her hat in there.
Two huge names that just signed up today as well. Kyra Milligan and right below her, Lexi Neely, both games rookies last year, throwing their name in the ring. And these are seeing names like this pop up changes the landscape of Ryan's question immediately. And then we're going to see some more people like that.
Semifinals. Now you're talking top 15, top 10.
Yeah,
exactly. And we knew Kyra was going to do this. She did a podcast earlier before the season started. With Sydney Wells, and I think it was her and Sydney were on one of the proven content podcasts, and Kyra's like, I'm going to do the qualifier. I'm going to try to take your spot, Sydney, because Sydney had gotten one of the spots. So, and Kyra's a type of athlete, exactly. And Kyra's one of those athletes. Like I said, I have a long history with her in terms of her. I've seen her grow into this amazing athlete where she's a games athlete where I don't see her having an issue making the games this year. And I don't see her having an issue being a top 30 athlete and fighting for one of those pro cards. I know that she would want one of those pro cards because like a lot of these, she's one of those athletes who is a full-time athlete. Like she does this full time. She doesn't have she doesn't really have a job except for, being a full-time athlete. So she has a lot of motivation to do this.
Yep. So Kyra, Lexi, both throwing their name in the mix. One of the best from Finland, Lisa Laiko. She's been registered for quite some time. She was on a team down in Wadapalooza in the elite division. She also podiumed at Turku Tuomiopäivä. By the way, if you're looking for a great competition in Finland in June, we'll be there. Lily Burkhead, good team athlete in the past, has been doing some individual competitions recently. Lindsay Lane, I believe JR is coaching her, and she's kind of hedging her bets on the World Fitness Project this year. Does have
Maybe
some good fitness and some potential. You guys saw her compete head to head with Fee last year in the
Mhm.
quarterfinals. I think the guys got most of the spotlight, but they were certainly there competing. Luisa Diaz out of Brazil, and one of the favorites, if not the favorite on the list right now, I would say is Matilda Garnes. I
Yeah,
mean, pretty much doesn't matter the competition. She seems to be at the peak fitness what we've seen from her.
yeah.
Um,
If it wasn't for this is a woman after she suffered a car crash, like fell off her bike, or really she got hit by a car when she was training down in Mallorca. Bounced back and did like 8 competitions in a year because she wanted to make that up. So her body, her training, you've seen it. You've been at many a competitions just this season, off season alone, where she likes competing. She trains to compete, and she trains hard so that way she can compete as much. And the only thing that stopped her from doing, I think, like 4 competitions within 6 weeks was her being sick, and that was at the IF3 where she was trying to defend her national champions or international world championship. And I think the travel just finally got to her. But yeah, she's
Well, and
definitely
you talk about this, like the resilience for competition of the Krieger athletes. Like it's just another example of it. I also think that she's going to be starting her own YouTube channel soon, so be on the lookout for that.
yeah.
The
And
women's side could see massive changes to the people who have pro cards, Clydesdale Media, way more parity.
yeah.
Certainly seems like that. There's, I would say, even of the ones that we've run through today, there's close to 10 athletes that we've mentioned. We still are going that are, I think they have every right to believe that they could earn a pro card this year.
Mhm. Yeah.
Nicolette Torregiani, saw her at the Wadapalooza field this year. Also puts out some great content on Instagram. If you guys aren't following her,
Yeah, it's a
pretty fun.
great fan base that loves you.
Pretty fit and also pretty funny and fun. So give her
Yeah.
a follow and we'll see how she does. Nina Vragovic,
Yeah.
and CrossFit Mayhem crew, and I mean, incredibly fit, up and comer. I would say, going to be curious to see if she can crack that top 10. I think she definitely can get into the challenger field at the very least. Norcha Bleeker coming off a great performance in Spain at the Pixel Showdown. I would say she's in kind of that top 10 conversation for sure.
Yeah.
Sapphire Goddard, go ahead.
I'm really interested to see, like, you know, once she switched over to no shortcuts, and now she's had a full year with Hode. It was great seeing her, and it showed. It definitely showed at Pixel, and so I'm really interested to see you know, how she does in this. I think she's going to do well in this online qualifier. I'd love to see her in live competition against just an amazing bunch of athletes.
Sapphire Goddard out of the UK, taking a stab here individually, just like Dan is. Both super, super good athletes. So be curious to see where they at. They competed a lot in the early part of the fall, then took some time off for themselves to let the body recover. They're pretty veterans, experience. So if they're signing up for this, they're probably going to be giving it their best. Sarah Massoni, one of the top athletes from Belgium. Shelby Neal, I mean, I would say alongside Matilda, uh, probably the right up there as a favorite to maybe win the qualifier. She's got a serious contention to take a pro card if she follows this throughout the year. Syria Meha was at the semifinals, I believe, the first time ever a female athlete, or maybe any athlete from Albania, has been there. There's actually a big competition coming up in Albania, May 17th. It's the week after Indianapolis, the Tirana Throwdown. So if you're in the Balkan region or whatever, I've heard that's a pretty well run competition. I was at one point going to see if I could get out there, but I don't think it's going to make sense for me this year. And then probably Taylor Podschweit. She competed at Fittest of the Coast in the elite division, but Trista Smith is probably the last big name on the list. And again, I feel like I've said it too many times, but probably a favorite for the top 10. But I feel like those top 10 spots are going to run out. So one
Yeah.
of the reasons we wanted to do this is because it is a qualifier. It is targeted to a specific group of athletes. But the names are already impressive. There's only going to be more of them popping up over the next couple of days. And then, we'll be looking for World Fitness Project to put out some information for how it's best to follow along, the process of how those workouts or qualifiers are going to go. Um, but yeah, it'll be I think it's cool to see this many athletes from all around the world and of this caliber that have already signed up with still like 5 days until the start of the competition.
John, our boy John from Hurt Athletics is loving this because a lot of the athletes, and I'll give it to John. John, if you haven't if you don't know much about Hurt Athletics, you probably have seen their belts because they're all over Wadapalooza, and he did such a cool thing. A lot of these athletes like Grace Lochner and some of these lesser known athletes who don't have necessarily sponsors or stuff like that. He was getting them belts, just gave them. It's like, hey, here you go. And these belts that he was giving, like him and the team, these are like $150 belts, if not more. And he's really loyal to the athletes. He has a really good eye, and so you don't see that much coming from sponsors. He's not asking for anything out of it. He didn't ask these athletes like, hey, tag me or whatever. He's like, here's a belt, and yeah, so it's just really cool. Give them a follow. Yeah, and check out their stuff. They got some really cool stuff. Uh, Hopefully, I don't know. It'd be cool to see some Be.Friendly gear, huh, from her athletics. That'd be kind of cool.
I think this is absolutely also a possibility. I mean, we're highlighting
Yes.
the big names that we know, but I would think just like in any game season, there's going to be somebody who surprises. Uh, and maybe it'll be in the challenger division, maybe it'll be through the qualifier or in the pro field. Um,
Or or it might be someone in the signed athletes because if you look at our rankings, there's a pretty big drop off. But I can see like your rankings. You have like Amy Kringle, what, like 16th, 17th, something like that.
yeah,
You can see her surprise and be top 10 or top 8. I just think it's like you said. Now that you kind of spread out, it's going to be it's a lot of workouts. That benefits an athlete like Amy Kringle or Sydney Wells or something like that, or one of those athletes, or even Emma McQuaid, who she's one of those tough athletes who not many people are expecting much. So I wouldn't just look at those challengers or the other 20 that don't make the initial 30 because they'll be competing against each other for that top 30 spot, but the top 20 as well.
I'm going to say this now, but I bet you that I'll forget this at some point during the year.
Yeah.
Considering that final is in towards the end of December, and it's double points with like it's so if there's actually 30 scoring opportunities, right? Because 9 times 2 is 18, plus 6 and 6 would be 12. So 18 of the 30 scoring opportunities in theory would be in that final, meaning you're going to see massive changes in Copenhagen compared to what we see in
In India.
Indianapolis.
Yeah, definitely. And Clydesdale media, I think Scott and people at Clydesdale, they're just like us. I think that's why we get along so well. It's like I think he knows how to identify those up and comers, and he loves telling their stories just like we do. So that's pretty cool. But he's totally right. Brian, I think you froze, or did I freeze? Did one of us freeze? What happened? Brian is frozen. Wow, Brian froze. All right, I'm gonna remove him. He'll be right back. It's usually me that freezes. But yeah, shout out to Clydesdale for one being in the comments and following along. But and he's back. You froze.
Yeah, the internet dropped. It's the first time it's happened since I've moved here.
It's usually me
So
that has the shitty internet. So, but yeah, there is something, and I don't know what are your thoughts on this. I mean, maybe to add a little bit incentive. Not that the challengers or the online qualifiers need any more incentive, but do you think that like anyone that signs up with the online qualifier gets like bonus points or like an extra 10, 20 points, kind of make it, I don't know. It give athletes an incentive, more incentive to join, but also it gives them kind of maybe a little bit of a head start. Not even a head start, but because it seems like the challenger, especially if you don't finish top 30, it's a little bit tougher for you to break that top 30 if you're not initially in that top 30. But maybe give some points for just being in the online stage for them. Thoughts on that?
Uh, nah, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it's. Let me think about it. I'm not sure. At first, I don't like it, but sometimes, first reactions are
Yeah.
not the most well thought out. So decent,
You can tell
decent
me. You
question.
can tell me I have it. You can tell me my ideas are shit. It's not the first time. I'm just I
But
mean
I
you
don't know
know
yet.
me.
It's a,
You know
it's a
me. I
thought.
want everyone to win. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, from what we've looked at is like it's going to be difficult to win the qualifier.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
it's going to be impressive to make it through the top 10. So what I feel is like no doubt about it, we're going to have 30 at least athletes in the pro field in Indianapolis that all have a chance to get a pro card next year on
yeah.
both the men's and women's side, and probably another 5 to 10 in the challenger who still would have a chance depending on how Mesa goes. Um, which to me also amplifies the importance of this online qualifier, and this conversation is also going to be true for the online semifinal for CrossFit this year. Like the spot, because there's about 10 spots for that also, and with this caliber of athlete and only that many spots, we see this in Rogue every year. You know, administering the online qualifier, executing it from the athlete, judging, coaching perspective, submitting videos on time that are clear, competent, all that stuff. Like all those details matter on it from the competition side to the athlete side to the judging side to the review side. So I'm curious and anxious to see what initiatives World Fitness Project takes to potentially do something different in terms of online qualifier processes than CrossFit has. I'm also curious to see if CrossFit has learned from their mistakes through the quarterfinals and applies some of the lessons learned to their semifinal this year, because what we're definitely seeing, and I think Will said this on the show as well, is more athletes that are interested in doing this professionally, and by that he means as a full-time job and career with the opportunity to earn money that is reflective of the time that they're putting in. And whether it's in the game season or the World Fitness Project or for Rogue, having a system in place, if you're going to do online qualifiers, that allows you to actually find the athletes who were fittest for your test, best at your test, not because of some nuance that's not related to it, performance. I would call it, we're looking for performance, not for minutia that's excluding or precluding people from doing things. So I'm eager to see what that looks like from both the World Fitness Project perspective and the CrossFit Games semifinal perspective this year.
Scott says, well, I'm assuming this is Scott. What will be fascinating is how different the programming will be from Indy to Mesa. A big finish in one and a challenger points in another could be enough to get a card. Yeah.
Yep, that's what I've been saying, and I think it's it's the first time we're seeing it, so there's going to be some cool stuff. Ryan, I'm excited to see Will's programming. Having a former athlete programming will be fun to dissect. Will have slight tendencies to program for his former strengths, question mark, workouts inspired by his hardships, question, not sure, but they have this kind of, one of their taglines is like for athletes by athletes. Obviously Will is the forward facing athlete in that regard. As we mentioned, he's done every kind of qualifier you can imagine, so he's also coached other athletes through that. So he was certainly drawn those experiences. I'm sure so many different ways we could see his history of competing be shown through the programming. Yeah, that'll be really fun to talk about whenever we see the first qualifiers, we see the first live workouts, and then also just to see what he comes up with as a season overall. When it comes to a season, regardless of the structure, we pretty much have Dave forever. We have Boz for a small window of time. And now this is like the next guy who's actually going to program multiple stops on a season. And so by the time December ends, we'll have that opportunity to look back and say, what did he do that was similarly different, and answer some of these questions.
I like, if you look at Will's history, especially his second half, after when basically 2019 on, when he became a perennial games athlete, you saw an evolution of him. It seemed like every year, he was kind of known as a guy who could snatch a lot, 295, 305-pound snatch, really good at clean and jerk. Former soccer player, had some agility, some fast twitch muscle. He did really good in the sprint event in 2019. That kind of helped him solidify that top 10 finish. Unfortunately, in that event, he tweaked his hamstring, and we weren't able to see what he could do on the clean event. because I actually think if he was healthy, he probably would have finished maybe 8th, 7th in the games that year instead of basically just settling for a 10th. But then we also saw a different Will later on, especially when he was with Proven, where he was doing a lot of biking, he was doing Ironmans, he was doing a lot of distance endurance running. So I think what he was doing there at that time is just trying to make himself a better overall athlete. So maybe he's grabbing a lot of what he's done during that training, what he's learned from his time, as owning an affiliate, running some classes at Trivium, to his time at Proven, being around a lot of great athletes. I mean, he's really good friends with Training Think Tank, with Max. He's really good friends with a lot of athletes. I think what you're going to have is someone who's going to surprise people with his programming, and like I said, with his experience, with doing so many online qualifiers, with traveling. I mean, this is a guy who went to South America and did a sanctional down there. I think he went maybe did Australia. I don't know. He's been all around the world doing competitions, so it'll be really cool to see. Lynn,
Yep.
my biased take: road judging has been the best over time. Can I answer that?
I think she's referring to the qualifiers, but yes.
Yeah. Well, the reason why is Rogue has kept the same judging crew, and that includes online, that includes the head judges since its start. I was lucky enough, and it's probably one of the highlights of my CrossFit career, that I was selected to be one of the first judges for the first Rogue Invitational. And I forgot what this year in Scotland. I forgot what Katie said. She said I think it was 80% of the judges are still the original crew, and that's just amazing. And that
The
includes
turnover is incredibly low.
low, because they treat their people so well, and they treat them with so well with and I'm not saying that the games doesn't, because it's such a smaller team. We're talking only like 20 judges, and then Rob Lawson and Drake, who pretty much head to mainly it's Rob now, but Drake helps out. Drake wears a different hat, but they're the head judges. Those are Katie's guys, and those guys are just amazing. I mean, we started off with on Rob's page. You've spent time with Rob. Rob is just salted earth, amazing guy. I learned so much from Rob, but that's one reason why I like the online judging as well, is because Rob and Drake, they have a good system in place, and the guys, the people they use for the judging, for the online judging, are the same people they've been using for the last 6 years plus for Rogue. So they know what to look for, and they tell them what they're looking for. You got to understand, both these guys are also games, like they were in charge of games. I first met Rob at the games. He was one of my leads for the games as a judge. The same with Drake. So these guys have plenty of experience judging the top athletes. If you look at that famous picture of Noah and Mary, is it Mary? Was it Mary against Fraser?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That middle lane judging Matt is Drake. That guy has been there in the most
Oh,
high stress.
you saw him yesterday too.
Yeah, we saw him yesterday. Yeah, and you very rarely see him judging anymore. But the guy is great. Him and Rob are great, and that's a reason why the judging is so good from there. I'm hoping that same quality of judging comes over to World Fitness Project. I imagine it will be, from the names I'm hearing that are involved. So we'll see.
Well, we thought we would do an hour show today. We did have. Oh, we can address this real quick, I guess. I just hope WFP can pull in a major sponsor after this year. That's the make or break. Come on, Red Bull. I just had a Red Bull. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, of course, there's big investment up front to get something like this off the ground. And obviously there's big initiative to have some other sources of revenue and means of support through partners and sponsors, going forward. So that is definitely wait and see. I think that there are definitely people on the World Fitness Project team that's their primary focus. I mean, they advertise their executive team. Ryan Husband is, I think, the director of business or development or something like that. So I'm sure he's involved and has some people supporting him. But yeah, that will be a huge question to be asked. There was somebody in a show that we did about this a couple of weeks ago that said, this thing is going to only last a year or two. And our response today would be the same as it was then, is if it's here, we're going to talk about it, because the athletes are showing up and competing, and they're incredible and they deserve the recognition.
and enjoy it. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
if people, people will talk like, "Oh, Gridley didn't, Gridley failed," but you know what? People still enjoyed watching it. It might have failed, but whatever. I just say enjoy it. If you're a fan of fitness and competition, the more the merrier. The more we can enjoy it. Especially seeing these great athletes, hearing their stories. I mean, we already saw it with the Jeff Adler video before it was taken down. Is like I mean, there's stuff about Jeff that even I didn't know. I didn't know that about his father. You got to see a side of Jeff that you never saw, and this was the defense. This is something that CrossFit never did. And that was my question: why hasn't CrossFit done something like that? But
Well, I think what we know historically is that during the time that CrossFit was growing the most, they were spending the most on media. And
yeah,
then it got to a point where we never got to see the back end or the books or anything like that, but Greg decided to stop spending that money. What we've seen from WFP this week already, the unbreakable thing, the caliber of content creators that are involved in that, the professional display of what the first episode of On the Pulse looked like, there's clearly an investment on the media side of things early on for the WFP, and maybe they're drawing upon that from those days of CrossFit during the 2013 to 18 time period when they were constantly putting things out. That's when athletes were stories outside of competition were getting told more. Those are still the athletes that have the most robust social media followings, and that does help them parlay their performances through exposure and growth into other opportunities outside of the field of competition. So that's the early, seems to me to be the early breadcrumbs, is that WFP is making a play on the media side of things. I actually think there's another series that's coming out sometime maybe next week. I don't know. So there's going to be opportunities to get to learn about these athletes through the initiatives that World Fitness Project is just now, I would say, starting to roll out.
yeah, we hear that all the time. Like, we still talk about. You hear people like, "Man, I miss the days when Bailey, Bridges, Froning. You got to know them and blah blah blah." I'm like, the reason why, and we don't have it with these athletes. That's because they're not being spotlighted, and the media isn't being invested in them like they were back then. If that same media and same attention was given to today's athletes, I mean, look what Jason Hopper, Dallin, and James and Justin Medeiros has been able to do without CrossFit. They're doing it themselves, and now CrossFit's leaning into it, and now WFP will lean into it. So you're going to get to know these people, and that's a reason. And Colton's a perfect example too. So we're getting to know that. Back then, it wasn't the athlete's responsibility. CrossFit did it for them. So now the athletes we're starting to get that new age of athletes where, like, man, remember the good old days? Like, we're getting that group of athletes like we had back then. I think the athletes recognize that, and I think the WFP will just help do that. Help these athletes get their stories out there, and us get to know them and follow along. So,
If you guys missed it at the start of the show, we were mentioning about McCoy Turner and his passing recently, and also the initiative that's available to support his kids that he has left behind. You can go back and watch kind of the first 15 minutes of the show to get some more information about that. The link to support them will be in the description. Everyone who's taken on the open workout this week, final week of the open, as always, give it your best, enjoy it with your community, celebrate the fitness that we work all year to have. And if you're a huge fan of competitive fitness, there's going to be another competition coming up, Online Qualifier for the World Fitness Project Challenger Qualifier 1 starting next Wednesday. And as we saw today, there's going to be some huge names involved in that. Patrick and I will be here. B.Friendly Fitness will be here to keep you guys abreast of what's going on as best we could. Who's that?
HGR CBD. They'll be here. They're always here. Speaking of sponsors. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
HGR CBD is incredible. Actually,
yeah.
I have through HGR CBD, I've registered to go play in the Las Vegas Challenge disc golf tournament the week after the WFP Tour Stop 1. So I'm going to fly out there, spend some time with Carl and Dimitri, and it's windy out there and it's windy here. So I like that. It's the kind of disc golf that I actually feel like I have a chance to compete in a little bit. So haven't played in a tournament since last July. I played in one in Charlotte. I got dead last in the woods there against Charlotte's a huge disc golf city. So it'll be fun to do another tournament and to spend some time with those guys. But we appreciate their support as always. Check them out. Relief Stick, the Muscle Solve, the gummies are some of my favorite stuff, the CBD gummies. So appreciate them as always. Patrick, anything to say before we sign out?
Yeah, kind of echo your sentiments. I'm trying to find that GoFundMe or that thing for um, for McCoy. And but again, if you know someone or if yourself is you're feeling yourself having thoughts of taking your own self or just taking your own life, please uh, reach out to someone or let it be known to somebody. And if you need someone, please slide in my DMs. Let me know. I'll be more than happy to chat with you and just listen. And for a lot of these people that are going through these things, it really all they're needing is just someone to listen to them. But first, you got to get them to speak. So, and those people are reluctant to speak sometimes. So, all right. Let's all have a great weekend. St. Patty's Day weekend, I guess. St. Patty's Day is on Monday. So, yeah. So remember that. Be safe this weekend. There's going to be a lot of stupid people doing stupid things out there because of the St. Patty's Day celebration. Make sure what you're drinking is green beer and just not anything that's just green. And yeah, just remember to be friendly, our friends.